Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford and it's actually pretty warm. I've not even got my parka on today. Lots of news to get through, and it feels a little bit like it's 2013 because United are being linked with Thiago Alcantara, which we know about and I'll get to in a minute, and also Gareth Bale, which is a bit of a strange one, but there seems to be quite a little bit of a momentum gathering behind stories that United may be looking at Gareth Bale as an alternative to Jadon Sancho. So I'll get to that in a little while. But first of all, on Thiago Alcantara. Now, the former Bayern Munich chief, Uli Hoeneß, has come out and said that he thinks Thiago Alcantara has an agreement in place with both Liverpool and United. Now, he said, if I can find the quote, he probably has an agreement, with, talking about Thiago Alcantara, of course, with Liverpool or Manchester United, or with both. Both clubs did not come to us with an offer. They are bluffing and likely waiting until the last week of the transfer window to make a cheap offer. Bayern must decide whether they want to play this game or stand their ground and keep Thiago. Thiago Alcantara obviously is coming towards the end of his contract. He hasn't signed a new deal and he is available for what's believed to be around €30 million. Now, both Liverpool and United are interested in him. Liverpool looks to be favourites. It sounds like Klopp's a big fan. Obviously, Liverpool just won the league, looking to strengthen and build on that. But they haven't come in with a solid offer, and for some reason it seems though Liverpool don't have a lot of money to spend. There's talks of Wijnaldum going to Barcelona. That may help fund a bid for Thiago Alcantara. Now, we spoke to Florian Plettenberg a few weeks ago. He covers Bayern Munich for Sport 1 over in Germany. Now, he said that whilst Liverpool were favourites to sign Thiago, he could see the midfielder coming to Manchester United because he felt that Manchester United is still considered the biggest club in England over in Germany, and rightly so. And he also felt that Thiago may be a little bit reluctant to go to Liverpool because he didn't think he'd get in the team. He said that maybe if Liverpool sold Naby Keita, then that could pave the way for Thiago Alcantara. Now, I don't think Liverpool are going to sell Naby Keita. You could argue that they're not going to, but they're going to sell Wijnaldum, so that could pave the way. And maybe that's true, but it's not sort of open and shut that Thiago Alcantara is going to go to Liverpool. And what we're hearing from Uli Hoeneß is that Manchester United have an agreement with him, that they've spoken to him and that he thinks there's probably some sort of agreement there that if United can come up with the money, which is a big if, I'll admit, then he'll come here to Old Trafford. Now, Hoeneß has been known in the past for making statements and saying things that ruffle a few feathers. He was the one a few weeks ago that said that Dortmund were a selling club. He said that he made a statement towards the effect that he didn't understand their transfer policy, why they would get these great players and then sell them. And that upset quite a lot of people in Dortmund. And some actually think that may affect Dortmund's mentality when it comes to their unwillingness to sell Jadon Sancho. Because Bayern Munich, they've just won the treble, Champions League, of course. And when he made those statements, Dortmund, we were speaking to Patrick Berger, not the former Liverpool player, but a reporter who covers Dortmund for Sport 1, and he said that the fact that Bayern Munich had won the treble, won the Champions League, the fact that Hoeneß was saying things like that had made Dortmund a little bit more determined to keep hold of Sancho. Also, the fact that Manchester United had missed this deadline that Dortmund had set. Dortmund set a deadline, early August, where they wanted Manchester United to meet that, come up with an offer that they were willing to accept. That didn't happen. So he was saying that he wouldn't be surprised or expected Dortmund to walk away. The deal's not dead yet with Jadon Sancho. We know that. Talks are ongoing. We know that I think Stefan Liechtensteiner's brother's involved. It doesn't seem like it's talks between the two clubs necessarily. It seems to be talks between agents and representatives of the clubs and people that are close to the deal. But it's not really getting anywhere. We know that we've had this sort of impasse. I keep using that word because that's where we've been for the past month or so, where Dortmund want £108 million. Manchester United want to pay that in instalments. I think £90 million up front, £18 million incentivised. Dortmund aren't having that. They want it all as one lump sum. So it keeps dragging on, and obviously the transfer deadline date is approaching. The season for Manchester United is coming up very soon. It kicks off obviously later on this week. So getting Jadon Sancho in before the season starts, before United's season starts, is looking unlikely. And by each passing day, the chances of getting Jadon Sancho in at all are looking less and less likely. It just remains to be seen whether Manchester United are going to basically pay the money, because I don't see Dortmund budging. I think the only way this deal gets done is if Manchester United pay the money. Now, in that respect, United apparently have been looking at alternatives to Jadon Sancho. There's reports in the Telegraph, I think it was Mike McGrath in the Telegraph, was saying that Manchester United are looking at alternatives to Jadon Sancho if they can't get the deal done. Now, one of those alternatives was Gareth Bale, and I was thinking, like, Gareth Bale, really? His wages are going to be astronomical. He's coming towards the end of his career. It very much feels like an Alexis Sanchez type move, where you're getting a player on massive wages, upsetting the apple cart in terms of the wage structure at the club. You have to ask yourself questions about where his motivation. Is he just there because of the money? Is he really cut out for the cut and thrust of the Premier League anymore? You'd probably think Gareth Bale could come to the Premier League and do a very good job, but is it worth all the sort of the financial costs you'd have to do, upsetting everything else to get Gareth Bale, and is it even realistic? Now, reports are that Real Madrid, because they're so keen to offload Gareth Bale, or because they're willing to let him go, they would take a hit on a chunk of his wages. So like we did with Inter Milan last season when we loaned Inter Milan Alexis Sanchez, Real Madrid would be willing to do the same with Gareth Bale and pay some of his wages, which could make the deal feasible. So United being linked with him, we'd have to see how serious that link is. As I said at the top of this, it feels very much like 2013 when we were linked with Gareth Bale in that summer and Thiago Alcantara, and of course we ended up with neither, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case this summer, but we'll wait and see. Now, with Gareth Bale, he's not the only alternative, reportedly again, that Manchester United are looking at if we can't get Jadon Sancho. Another one is Ivan Perisic. That feels like 2018, doesn't it, when we were linked with him. Apparently Jose Mourinho was a big fan. So there's talk that if we can't get Jadon Sancho, that Ivan Perisic is at target. Also, another target is Douglas Costa. Now, all these players have a similar sort of trait in that they're not that young. They're getting towards the end of the career. I know Douglas Costa isn't quite as old as the others, but they're getting towards the end of the career-ish. That makes you think that you could bring in someone like, say you brought in Gareth Bale for a season or whatever, then you can go again for Jadon Sancho in the summer, which to that respect does make sense. It makes a lot more sense than some of the other stories we were hearing earlier on in the summer. We were linked with all sorts of players. We were linked with the likes of Kingsley Coman. We were linked with David Brooks at one point. And these are players that you don't see. Excuse that noise. Someone just seems to be testing out their old banger down the road there past Old Trafford. Yeah, it does seem like those players we were linked with wouldn't be a viable alternative to Jadon Sancho if you were going to go again for him in the summer, because then you'd have a younger player who still wanted to play football who was at the club. And also, realistically, is someone like David Brooks an alternative to Jadon Sancho? No, he's not. So if you were to bring in Gareth Bale for a season and then go again for Jadon Sancho next summer, does make a little bit more sense. Again, we'll have to wait and see though, because at the moment there's lots of speculation, there's lots of ifs and buts and maybes. We don't know what's happening in terms of how the Jadon Sancho negotiations are continuing. Has there been any movement over the last few days? There was some reports on social media that maybe there has been, but like I said earlier, it just seems like a massive impasse and someone needs to budge, and I think that someone is Manchester United Football Club. I think Manchester United really just need to pay up the money. Now, another player that we've been linked with in a different position on the pitch is Benoit Badiashile, 19-year-old from Monaco. Apparently, they're willing to accept a £23 million fee for the youngster, young defender. So he's another target that we're looking at. He could end up coming here to Old Trafford. We know that we've been linked with quite a few defenders. Upamecano, before he went to Arsenal, we were briefly linked with Gabriel Magalhaes. I'm not sure how real that interest was, or whether that was just his agent trying to push through and move to Arsenal, which I suspect it may have been. But Badiashile is definitely on our radar. Whether we're going to make a bid, a £23 million offer, it's reported what it'll take to get him here. Doesn't seem that excessive. That could happen. We know we need a little bit of strengthening there. There's also talk, of course, of the likes of Telles and Sergio Reguilon. Sergio Reguilon apparently is available. Real Madrid are willing to sell him. They've even offered us to him. He went on loan to Sevilla, of course. We know he had a great season at Sevilla. He was La Liga's best left-back. We saw what he did in the Europa League against Manchester United. So he's an option there if we were looking to strengthen. I don't know how real that interest is in terms of, are Manchester United going to make the bid or going to make the offer? If we did, though, it seems that we could get him. I just don't know. It seems that we have other priorities, and that other priority, rather than using the plural, is Jadon Sancho. We're spending a lot of effort, a lot of time trying to bring Jadon Sancho into the club. And if it doesn't happen, there'll be a lot of disappointment from Manchester United fans, including myself, because I think he'd be a fantastic player and someone that we should be pursuing. We know the number 7 shares available. It fit right into that. We know, I don't want to repeat myself, but we know what competition for places, be able to rotate across that front line, give the likes of Mason Greenwood, Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford a rest when needed. That's what Manchester United have always been about, having options, and that's what we should be about now. Now, one player who may be going the other way is Diogo Dalot. I think it was Duncan Castles in his podcast recently was saying that Dalot is hankering for a move. We know that he's not been getting much game time here at Old Trafford. We saw that even the likes of Timothy Fosu-Mensah last season was preferred over him, so it looks like he could be heading out the door. There's several players at Manchester United that are expected to head out, but the time is running out. The transfer window the transfer deadline is approaching, so you have to wonder what happens with the likes of Andreas Pereira, Jesse Lingard, who of course played in the friendly recently against Aston Villa. Are these players surplus to requirements? Phil Jones, what's happening with him? There's a lot of question marks over some of the players, the fringe members of the squad who aren't in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's plans. Do they have to be moved on before we can buy other players? It remains to be seen. We might expect a lot more players going out than coming in over the next couple of weeks. But the big story here at the minute is that Thiago Alcantara remains a target, that according to Uli Hoeneß, the former Bayern Munich chief, Manchester United have agreed terms with him. Whether we make a bid, whether we get him, remains to be seen. We know Liverpool are interested. We know that Jurgen Klopp is a big fan of his. And if Liverpool can sell Wijnaldum, that should fund that bid for them. Even without that, they may well be able to come to some sort of agreement. But with the club, with obviously Bayern Munich, and take Thiago Alcantara to Anfield. But I'd personally like to see him here. Yes, we've got Van der Beek, but he can play in that sort of holding role that Thiago likes to play in if you want to play him there, but that's not his best position. You'd like to think that Van der Beek may be an option to rotate with the likes of Bruno, with Pogba. Bringing in someone like Alcantara gives you that different option. We know that Fred can play there, we know Scott McTominay can play there, but in the past we've more or less seen them play there together. We've seen them in the holding midfield role next to each other as a sort of pair. Can they do that on their own? I'm not so sure. Could Alcantara? I think he could, and I think a midfield of Alcantara, Pogba and Bruno, or Van der Beek will look very strong indeed for the new season going into it. Also, bring Jadon Sancho into it. That's a very good transfer. Well, it's a decent transfer window. I still think we could do with a defender. Maybe that defender will be Benoit Benadashil. That remains to be seen. But at the moment, United coming to agreement with Alcantara, according to the former Bayern Munich chief. Let's see what happens with that one. The sun's beginning to shine. The birds are chirping. I just wish Manchester United would make some signings. I've been Jay. This has been the Stretford Paddock Paper Talk. We've got loads of good stuff coming up this week. Obviously, we'll be looking ahead towards the Crystal Palace game. We'll also have the Tier 1 Transfer Podcast. We've got a great guest for that coming up. Later on today, you'll have Howson's Brew. I'll be on there with a guest as well. So don't forget to check that out. Don't forget also to hit like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.